Hello. Now, I just got I got a microphone about a couple of weeks ago. It was given to me by my sons as a birthday present, and I've spent about 2 weeks trying to work out how it actually works. It's very complicated, but I think I've got it now. What I didn't realise when I started trying to record anything on it was that I have to have a far more intimate relationship with this thing than I had with my old Yeti, and so that's why you've got this thing in front of my face. If I'm not right up to the microphone, then it doesn't pick anything up. For a long time I thought it wasn't working. Okay, that's number 1 point out of the way. The second point is I'm going to be talking about a situation which appears to me to be a weird philosophy that's going round, whereby white British people are trying to sterilise themselves out of existence. I shall present my case, but I am very prepared to admit, if anyone has the proof of it, that I might be suffering from apophenia. Apophenia is a phenomenon whereby, well, you know, where human brains are always wired to look for patterns, and that's fine. But what happens is sometimes it gets a little bit out of control, and then it becomes quite dangerous, especially when you're trying to model the world or even make predictions for what's going to happen next. That can put you very much off beam. So if any of you think that I am suffering from apophenia, you can let me know in the comments. I would be interested to hear what you have to say about the points I'm going to make. But before I do that, I'm Granniopteryx. I'm on several channels, and I let you know when I've uploaded a new video on Twitter and Gab. And I would advise you to subscribe to those so you never miss a notification. All the links are in the description, including links to donation sites if you want to use them. But the best thing you can do, click that like button. And what next? Yeah, for your convenience, whenever I come across a point I think might be interesting, I shall ring a bell. Yeah, like that. So, on to the possible apophenia. Let's talk about Calderdale. This is an article in the Daily Telegraph. Now, the headline says, "Gender critical books hidden by tin pot censor librarians." I disagree with that headline straight away, because you can't just point the finger at librarians. This is being done under the aegis of the council, obviously, which happens to be Labour. All right, let's carry on. The works removed from public view are all critical of gender ideology and transgender activism, and includes Kathleen Stock's book, Material Girls. I'll scroll down and I'll show you the books. Let's find it here. Right, list of books removed. Material Girls by Kathleen Stock. Irreversible Damage, The Transgender Craze Seducing Our Daughters by Abigail Schreier. That's got a fantastic book jacket. I'll put it up there. Trans, When Ideology Meets Reality by Helen Joyce. Double Think, Feminist Challenge to Transgenderism by Janice G. Raymond. Trigger Warning, My Lesbian Feminist Life by Sheila Jeffries, and Transgender Body Politics by Heather Bunskill Evans. The point is, it's a whole set of books, and they all have one thing in common. They are gender critical. All the books are still there. They're in the public libraries in Calderdale. Oh, by the way, Calderdale is a metropolitan borough. I'll put a map up there. It takes up a large chunk of East Yorkshire, lies around halfway between Leeds and Manchester, and quite close to Rochdale. Yeah. And it has some of the most beautiful and picturesque countryside in the entire British Isles. And in Maine, you can say it's bounded by the industrial city of Halifax on the east and the permanently flooded Todmorden in the west. Oh boy, my friends in Todmorden are going to hate me for that. To continue. So all these books are there in the library. Heaven forfend that a Labour council would actually remove books, but they're not on the shelves. You have to ask for them specifically. Let's have a look what they say here. Works by authors sceptical of transgender activism became the subject of an internal grievance within the library service of Calderdale Council, a local authority affiliated with the controversial LGBT charity Stonewall. I'm not so sure it's the Tin Pot librarians who are doing this. I'd be inclined at least to consider the possibility that this comes from the top. And this is the Calderdale Council page about Stonewall. Here we are, Stonewall Diversity Champions. And here they say they are working with that organisation. Stonewall is Britain's leading gay, lesbian and equality organisation. We are keen to work with them to enable staff, residents and visitors to really be themselves. And they have received the highest accolade that Stonewall can bestow on any of its followers. They are officially Stonewall Diversity Champions. And it says down here, each year on the 17th of May, we recognise International Day Against Homophobia and Transphobia, and they fly the rainbow flag from the Halifax Town Hall every 17th of May. Yeah, I'd say affiliated is just about the correct word. The Telegraph can reveal that books critical of gender ideology have been removed from public view by staff at council libraries and stashed out of sight in the off-limits storage space. And this is a comment from the library about that. Calderdale Council has stated that no books are expressly banned by library services. They say expressly banned. That means they can be banned in sideways ways. Anyway, no books are expressly banned by library services, but information from the local authority has revealed that following consideration of a formal grievance internally, whatever that means, a number of titles were placed in the lending store. And what's the lending store? Well, here it says, books not visible on shelves. The council has confirmed that while these books could be found in the catalogue and specifically requested by the public, they are not visible on the library shelves. Now, that means you can't just go in there and browse. You have to know what you're looking for and then, find it on the online catalogue, I suppose, and then request it officially before you get a copy. So to all intents and purposes, the book is invisible. Okay, so that's the story, which is shocking enough. But then there's something else in that article that caught my attention. Library services overseen by a Labour councillor, that's Jenny Lynn, by the way, and it says here, she faced calls to resign after speaking at a pro-Palestine rally supporting a wanted terrorist. She was told to resign, or asked to resign, which she didn't do. This was a couple of years ago. She spoke at this pro-Palestinian Palestinian rally, which was being held in support of a guy who blew up a polling station in Israel. It's this same woman instrumental, I suppose, in having hidden books warning of the dangers of puberty blockers and gender reassignment surgery. So it's funny that these two things... Well, hang on. So Jenny Lynn supports Stonewall. She also supports the mutilation and sterilisation of children in the name of gender ideology. And she supports the Palestinian cause. In most cases, when you put those things together, they don't actually add up. It doesn't make any logical sense. This is the Halifax Courier's take on it, if I haven't lost it. Sorry, I had lost it. But anyway, I found it now. And this is their take on it. A Friends of Palestine rally row involving Calderdale cabinet member rumbles on. This is from a couple of years ago. A row over a Calderdale council cabinet member's involvement with a campaign group which invited controversial speakers to an event rumbles on. As chair of the Halifax Friends of Palestine, she's council cabinet member for public services and communities, and attended the group's recent rally at Savile Park, Halifax, and it prompted concerns voiced by opposition politicians. Halifax Labour MP Holly Lynch pulled out of the meeting, saying she would not share a platform with one of the other speakers, although she wasn't brave enough to say which one. Okay, so let's go back to this. What does banning gender-critical books have to do with a pro-Palestine rally? You may well ask. And I'll start by going back to transgenderism, especially when it's being done to children, which is what those books, the hidden books, were all about. When you change a child from one sex to the apparent opposite sex, what you have to do is sterilise the kid. In the case of a girl, even if the rest of the organs aren't removed, the breasts are. So the best that can happen is that when the girl grows out of it, she will be a maimed adult who wouldn't be able to feed her own babies. And of course, if she goes through the whole thing, even if she detransitions, she will never be able to have babies. Whatever a transgender person does or is, the end result is that he or she ends up as an adult unable to reproduce. I know there are transgender adults who find fulfilling lives in other ways, but they're people who transitioned in adulthood and thought about it very carefully, and in many cases already have had children. However, I'm talking about doing this to kids, and that's what those books were warning against. And in that case, it's all about sterility. Now let's move on to the Palestinian cause, which seems to me to be a sterile idea. That is, from what I've seen of the ambitions of the Palestinian cause, they seem more focused on killing Jews than actually building a state. I have a little clip here which might interest you. It certainly caught my attention. It was a group of pro-Palestinian supporters who travelled from Bradford to attend a rally in London. Fair enough. Then they went on to drive through Golders Green, a part of London which has a large Jewish population, and one of them was shouting through a tannoy about killing the men and raping their wives and daughters. Yes, a public display. You don't believe me? Here it is. All right, are you convinced? Well, that's not very constructive, is it? Just as a side note, could you imagine the national outrage if a group of Tommy Robinson's pals went through Bradford shouting about raping Pakistani daughters? They'd lock him up and throw away the key, wouldn't they? And so far as I've been able to ascertain, although it's difficult to find out, the case against these guys was started and then quietly dropped. No national outrage and no idea of locking them up. Anyway, so all of those guys were of Pakistani heritage, I guess, but Jenny Lynn certainly isn't. And this seems to me to be a particularly white British thing, which I've noticed. And here we get to, well, is this apophenia? The Palestinian cause is of no use to Britain whatsoever. Espousing it is a waste of resources that could be better used on rescuing child slaves in the Congo or Christian villagers in Nigeria. But no, it's taking up a cause for people who basically hate the West and all we stand for. But do you think that the same sort of people who support the Palestinian cause also support the Stonewall cause? Well, it looks like they do. I should also think that such people might support the Just Stop Oil nutters as well, and they're pushing an ideology that would, if applied, kill millions of people and make life hell for the survivors. Again, another dead end idea, another sterile ambition, along with the 15-minute neighbourhood idea, which would stop social movement and interaction and all the diversity that has up until now brought life to metropolises. I'm not suggesting that every single one of this group of people has taken on board all of these ambitions, but it does seem to me that there's a high likelihood of that. Well, what do you think? Am I imagining things? What it boils down to, in my mind, is that there's a section of our population over here which has the goal of sterilising themselves out of existence and trying to force us along the same path. I don't know, I find the whole thing extremely puzzling, but it does seem like a creepy coincidence. Well, I'd be very interested to read your comments, and we'll leave it there till next time. I'll have to do something about that wave, won't I? Now this thing's in the way. Okay, yeah, other hand. Till next time. Why not treat yourself or a favoured relative or friend to these magnificent examples of merch? The mugs and t-shirts come in the granniopteryx design or Granbo with a firearm or the more deadly knitting needles. Go to www.granniopteryx.com and whatever platform you're watching this on, please click like, subscribe and share.